The dim, flickering light of the twin moons cast long shadows across the jagged rocks of the alien landscape. Zynara's thin, trembling fingers traced the empty hollow in the nest where her eggs had once rested. Her heart ached with a pain so deep it felt like the very fabric of her being was unraveling. Her children, her precious, unhatched children, were gone. Stolen. Taken by the cruel, faceless raiders who had descended upon her small, isolated colony in the dead of night. Zynara's species, the Kryll, were a peaceful race, known for their deep familial bonds and their reverence for life. To lose one's eggs was to lose a part of oneself, a future that would never come to be. She had spent days searching the barren wasteland, calling out with her mind in the hopes that her telepathic bond with her eggs would lead her to them. But there was nothing, only silence. She collapsed to her knees, her long, slender limbs folding beneath her as she let out a mournful wail that echoed across the desolate landscape. Her grief was a tangible thing, a weight that pressed down on her chest and made it hard to breathe. She had failed them. She had failed her children. Far from the Kryll colony, in the bustling hub of a human outpost, a young engineer named Jace was tinkering with a piece of machinery he had salvaged from a recent raid. The humans had established a presence on this planet only a few months ago, and tensions were high between them and the native Kryll. The humans were seen as invaders, and the Kryll as obstacles to progress. But Jace had never been one to buy into the us versus them mentality. He was here to do a job, not to pick fights. As he worked, something caught his eye. Nestled among the scrap metal and broken machinery was a cluster of small, glowing orbs. They pulsed faintly, as if alive, and Jace felt a strange, almost magnetic pull toward them. He reached out and carefully picked one up, turning it over in his hands. It was warm to the touch, and he could feel a faint vibration emanating from within. "What the hell are these?" he muttered to himself. He didn't have to wait long for an answer. As he examined the orbs, a sudden, overwhelming wave of emotion crashed over him. It wasn't his own. It was as if someone else's grief, their despair, had been thrust into his mind. He staggered back, dropping the orb, which rolled away from him, still pulsing with that faint, otherworldly light. Jace's heart raced as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. He had heard rumors that the Kryll were telepathic, but he had never experienced it firsthand. And now, he realized with a sinking feeling, he was holding something that belonged to them, something precious. Zynara's head snapped up as she felt it, a faint, distant echo of her egg's presence. It was weak, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. She focused all her energy on that tiny spark, reaching out with her mind, trying to amplify the connection. And then she felt something else. Presence. A mind that was not Kryll but not entirely alien either. It was human. Zynara's first instinct was to recoil. The humans were the enemy. They were the ones who had brought violence and destruction to her world. But this human had her eggs. She could feel them faintly through the connection. And she could feel something else too, a flicker of confusion, of guilt. She didn't have time to think. She had to act. With a determined set to her jaw, she set off in the direction of the human outpost. Jace was still reeling from the telepathic onslaught when he heard the commotion outside. He grabbed the orbs, eggs he realized now, and stuffed them into a makeshift satchel, slinging it over his shoulder. He had to get out of here. He had to find a way to return them to their rightful owner. But as he stepped out into the corridor, he was met with a sight that stopped him in his tracks. A Kryll stood before him, her large, luminous eyes filled with a mixture of anger and desperation. She was taller than he had expected, her slender frame trembling with emotion. and she was staring right at him. "You," she said, her voice a low, guttural growl that echoed in his mind. "You have my children." Jace held up his hands, the satchel clutched tightly in one of them. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "I didn't realize what they were. I swear I didn't mean to." "Give them to me," Zynara demanded, cutting him off. Her voice was sharp, but there was a pleading note to it that made Jace's chest tighten. He hesitated for only a moment before slowly lowering the satchel and holding it out to her. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't know." Zynara snatched the satchel from him, her long fingers curling protectively around it. She opened it just enough to see the faint glow of her eggs within, and a shuddering breath escaped her. They were safe. They were whole. But as she looked up at the human before her, she felt a strange, conflicting emotion. This human, this invader, had returned her children to her. He had shown her a kindness that she had not thought possible from his kind. "Why?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Why did you do this?" Jace shrugged, looking down at his feet. "It was the right thing to do," he said simply. "I didn't know what they were, but I could feel how much they meant to you. I couldn't just leave them." Zynara studied him for a long moment, her mind racing. This human was not like the others. He was different. And in that moment, she felt something she had not felt in a long time, hope. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have given me back my future." Jace nodded, a small, awkward smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'm just glad I could help." As Zynara turned to leave, Jace called out to her. "Wait." She paused, looking back at him. If you ever need help again," he said, his voice hesitant but sincere, "you can come to me. I'll do what I can." Zynara regarded him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "I will remember that," she said. And with that, she disappeared into the night, her precious cargo held tightly against her chest. Jace watched her go, a strange sense of satisfaction settling over him. He had done the right thing. And maybe, just maybe, he had started to bridge the gap between their two species. Back in her nest, Zynara carefully placed her eggs back into the hollow, her heart swelling with relief and gratitude. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. As she settled down beside them, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her children would hatch, and they would grow up in a world that was still full of danger and uncertainty. But they would also grow up knowing that there was kindness in the universe, even in the most unexpected places. And as she closed her eyes, she sent out a silent message of thanks to the human who had shown her that not all hope was lost. Epilogue. Months later, Jace found himself standing at the edge of the Kryll colony, a small bundle in his arms. He had been invited, an unprecedented gesture of trust from the Kryll. As he approached, he saw Zynara waiting for him, her eyes filled with warmth and gratitude.